What is going on, YouTube, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Lexi. Thank you for joining. I'll put my Instagram up above. But you guys, I am super pumped for today's video because I am doing a coaching Q&A. So I put a question box up on my story and asked you guys what specific questions you had for me as a coach. So a little backstory for those of you that don't know, I am a one-on-one online coach for both lifestyle clients, but also competition prep clients. I have been a coach for almost 3 years, which is crazy to think, honestly, that I've been doing it for, I say this long, I don't know if 3 years is that long, but it seems like it has flown by. And the cool thing is I have learned so much from when I started, and I love this job so much. And like, honestly, I did not know this is what I wanted to do. Like, partly because this coaching was like not a huge thing when I got into college, but I am so happy that I, kind of landed where I am. So I'm going to jump into it because I've got a lot of great questions. I will put out the disclaimer that if you are watching this and you are potentially interested in one-on-one coaching with me, I always have the link to inquire below. But let's get right down to it. So the first question is, what got you into coaching? So when I really think back, I actually started coaching when I was still in college. It was the second semester of my junior year. And I would say what got me into coaching is I was pursuing a degree in exercise physiology. That's what my bachelor's of science degree is in. And I, at the time, my current boss, Paul Ravella, he and I had connected, and I was kind of helping him with some work, and kind of just like, learning from him, shadowing him a little bit. And I think he saw how passionate I was, and how I did want to eventually be a coach. And that's how I was offered a spot on the team. So that's what originally got me into coaching. And that was back in, oh my God, I don't even know. I can't do the math, but it was the second semester of my junior year when I was getting my bachelor's of science. So I did do coaching part-time while I was in school, and then obviously now I'm doing it full-time, and I love it. So that's a great question. Next question is, do you plan on coaching forever? So I like this question because, at the end of the day, right now, I don't see myself doing anything different. Like, this is truly like my calling. I do think, I just always say never. I'm not somebody that's like big on setting a 5-year plan for myself, just because I know how drastic of changes that have gone down within the past year of my life, and all amazing changes. But it's like, I don't want to limit myself by giving myself a 5-year plan, right? I'm kind of just a go with the flow type of girl. But yeah, right now I definitely see myself coaching for a good bit of time. Like I said, never say never, but for now, like, this is what I'm going to be doing for a while because I truly love it. So okay, next question, and I love this question. What are some of the biggest red flags in a coach? So I actually made a video a long time ago on my Instagram when Instagram TV was a thing. I saved it to my profile, and I talked about some coaching red flags. I've also done a podcast on this topic as well. And, I think in a nutshell, I hear so many awful coaching horror stories, and it makes me so sad, honestly, that it's still going on today. But I would say the first one that always jumps to my mind immediately is, if you inquire with a coach and they don't offer to hop on the phone with you, that's a pretty big red flag in my opinion. Because it's like, how do they even get to know you if they don't hop on the phone with you? Like, chances are you're probably getting a cookie cutter plan if they're not offering to talk on the phone with you, if that makes sense. So that's a big red flag in my opinion. I think another red flag is, I could go on a whole tangent on this topic, but I think another red flag would be just communication. Like, if your coach is just not communicating with you or not responding days and days and days, to me, that's a bit of a red flag, especially if you're a competition prep client and you're having to wait for your coach to email you back or text you back or whatever, and it's taking days. That's valuable time that you could be making changes, in prep, right? So that's another big red flag. And I think at the end of the day too, you have to trust your gut instinct. If you are with a coach and they're doing something that makes you feel uncomfortable, whether it be with their demeanor, like in their personality and the way they coach, like if they're very, dictatorial, or if like the protocol is making you uncomfortable and you feel like it's a little extreme or too extreme where you feel like it's not right, like trust your gut instinct. But those would kind of be like some of my coaching red flags in a nutshell. Again, I could go down a whole tangent, but I won't. So those are some red flags, but I like that topic. It's a good one. Okay, so the next question I got was, how do you balance a client and coach relationship? And I like this question. It's gonna be very dependent on the client. So, I've always heard like some people say don't mix like coaching with friendships. And to be honest, I don't like to coach like I don't coach any family members. I haven't had any friends that come to me like where we were friends first and they want me to coach them. But I prefer to stay away from that, because I just don't want to tie like that relationship aspect into it if I've already had a relationship with them, if that makes sense. But I do find like some of my clients, we just have a really strong bond and relationship and really similar personalities. And, I think it can work right now. If I feel like it ever have, if I feel like it ever gets to a point where it's too much, like I would let the client know, right? But it definitely hasn't so far. I know some coaches, they firmly don't believe in like having a friendship with their clients, but for me, I feel like some people need that. They need to know that, maybe I'm not going to be besties with my client and like go out and get coffee all the time with them or whatever, but I think that having a little bit of rapport and having a little bit of like a lot of that trust built really does help the coaching relationship, if that makes sense. So I like that question. Good one. Okay, next question that I got is, have I ever had clients who have not told their family about them being coached? And I honestly don't recall off the top of my head. I don't think I've ever had somebody that I coach like hide it from their significant other or whatnot. To my knowledge, to be honest, I'm gonna say no. I think that maybe I've had clients who have signed up and it's not like they like go and share, with their immediate family, like, oh my gosh, I hired a coach, or their extended family. But no, I haven't had a client that has like hired me and then like kept me a secret, if that makes sense. Um, Okay, next question. Describe my ideal client. So, again, love this question. So, I would say I could sit here and say my ideal client is some genetic freak, some unicorn. And while yes, that's awesome, I think that my ideal client more so has to do with like their personality, because I truly believe that passion and drive and discipline and like mindset in particular is super, super important. And like that sticks out to me in a client much more than if they just come to me and they're a genetic freak, but like they have the worst mindset. So I guess I'll separate it in between like what my ideal lifestyle client is and what my ideal prep client is, since I do work with both. So I would say my ideal lifestyle client is, I really like somebody that is eager to learn, somebody who trusts the process and trusts me and doesn't just, try something for a couple days and then, give up when it's hard. Like I do really like somebody who trusts the process, trusts me, somebody who's just willing to learn, willing to change their lifestyle habits. And then communication is a really big one for me. I really appreciate, and this goes for prep and lifestyle, I really appreciate somebody who communicates with me. Like it pains me when I just have people who just like skip check-ins and then it's like, even if it wasn't a good week, like let me know what's going on. I think communication is such a valuable quality like in life in general. And at the end of the day, I always tell my clients, like the more you tell me, the better I can help and serve you as a coach. And then, on the other side, my ideal client when it comes to competition prep, again, a genetic anomaly, awesome, yes, that would be great. But like I care much more about somebody that comes to me and, with competition prep, somebody who has the discipline first and foremost, somebody who, again, big on communication. But I also really love getting competition clients that trust me and, they are willing to allow me to tell them what they need to hear, which may not always be what they want to hear. For example, I've had people come to me before, like first time competitors or even like just, competitors who have competed before and they're like, I want to do this show. And I might tell them, well, we can do that show, but do I think you're going to come in at your best? No. And I really appreciate competitors that respect that and that trust me when I tell them, and give them that type of advice rather than just saying, oh, well, I want to do the show anyways, or, you know what I mean? So that's what I really respect in a competition prep client, somebody who is eager to listen, eager to learn, somebody who's passionate about the sport too. I love when my prep clients are passionate about the sport, like when they go out of their way to go to shows, when they go out of their way to practice their posing. Like, I love that. And I really think that can take a competitor really far. Okay, so next question is, what are some of my client pet peeves? So, I really think that the biggest thing, okay, there's two that kind of get under my skin. And the first one is just lack of communication. Like, I always tell my clients, like, please tell me everything, even if it's not good, like, even if you messed up throughout the week. Like, I respect you much more when you're actually open with me rather than when you try and hide things. So I think that's probably one of my pet peeves. It's just lack of communication. And then also, I think one of my other big pet peeves, and this isn't necessarily for like my current clients, but like people who sign up and then they just ghost you as a coach. Like, it happens, unfortunately, believe it or not. And it's just like, it really hurts. And it's like, okay, I would appreciate if you just told me, hey, like, this isn't working out, I need to discontinue, rather than just like not say anything and practically fall off the face of the earth. So I would say those are maybe some of my, like, what I would classify like pet peeves. So the next question is, what are some of your peak week strategies? So peak week, for those of you guys that are watching, is the week, like the week before a show day. So as a competitor, it's that week leading up to your show day. So my peak week strategy with most or pretty much all of my clients is, I want to have you ready before peak week. Peak week should not be some week where you have to do these drastic extremes to like lose like a ton of weight. No, you should be ready by peak week, in my opinion, because what I like to do with my competitors, have them ready early, and then we do a little depletion on the weekends, higher cardio, lower carbs. And then starting Monday, we typically walk up carbs slowly and walk down cardio slowly. So that way they can fill out and their body can release any inflammation that they may be holding on to. This approach is called a linear loading approach. So that's personally the approach I take to peak week with most of my clients. And we do daily check-ins and all of that. Not saying my way is the only way by any means, but that's just the way I have found that is, works best for my clients, so to say. And that's the approach I typically take as a competitor as well with my own peak weeks. So great question. So next question is, what would you do differently for somebody with a binge purge history who wants to compete? So that is a great question. Typically, if I have a client who expresses to me that they want to compete, I am really big on making sure that their relationship with food is in a good spot already, because at the end of the day, prep is only going to enhance whatever's at the surface already, right? So if somebody is already struggling with eating disorder tendencies or patterns and they want to prep, I like to fix those issues first, and also make sure they're in a good spot with their relationship with food before we ever endeavor a prep. So if I had somebody with a binging history, I would definitely want to make sure that before we start prep, their relationship with food is and has been for a while in a really good spot. That way we don't risk, any of those tendencies coming back during prep. And I also think somebody, if they have a binging history during prep, may need a little bit more of a like not as rigid of an approach, like not eliminating a ton of food groups and whatnot, just because typically people, when they binge, it's because they feel restricted elsewhere. You know what I mean? So if I take the approach where I give them this meal plan with like 3 different foods on it, and for the whole prep, they're probably going to feel very restricted and they may have those binging tendencies that come back. So that would be my specific approach if I had a client who wanted to compete, who did have that history. Again, I always like to make sure before I prep all of my clients that their relationship with food is in a phenomenal spot, because as I said, prep is only usually going to enhance the problem at hand. So great question. So how to lessen food focus after prep. So, this is kind of an inevitable one for the most part. If you're a competitor and you've competed before, you know that after prep, you usually have a lot of focus towards food. Like it consumes your brain. This doesn't apply to everybody. For a lot of competitors, though, it does. After the show, like you're just thinking about food all the time. And I think the best thing you can do is stay busy, after a show, occupy your mind. I find that with my clients that don't have as much going on, or even with myself, if I just don't have like a busy day, all I'm thinking about is food post show, right? And like this applies post show particularly, but staying busy is really helpful. And I also think just really knowing that post show every week is going to get a little bit better as you reverse out of your show. Your hunger is going to subside a bit. Your food focused thoughts are going to lessen. It will happen over time, and I think you just really have to trust that and know that time is on your side when it comes to the food focused thoughts. So next question, did you always know you wanted to be a coach? So, like I said at the beginning, no, absolutely not. Because when I started school for my bachelor's of exercise physiology, like I never changed my major. That's what I got into school to do, and that's what I got my degree in. I don't think I really knew what I wanted to do. I just knew that I was pursuing a degree in what I was passionate about. And I think I just kind of like trusted that it would, by the end of my 4 years in school, it would like work out, and it did. So that's kind of, yeah, I definitely, when I got into college, I didn't really even think of online coaching as being a realistic job I could make for myself. So it's funny like how things can change and how much this industry has really taken off. And yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay, next question is, what on a client's application excites you to work with them? So I think, one of the things that I really love seeing in a client's application, and this is specific to like a client who wants to compete, is a client that indicates like in their inquiry that they, like, so sometimes I'll have clients that are like, I really want to compete, but I know I need to build a little bit more before I compete. That always really excites me because I feel like oftentimes I have to do the opposite when it comes to competitors. Like I have to tell them, no, we probably need to take some time to build first before competing. So I love when somebody is already on the same page as me with that. So that's probably one of my favorite things to see on an inquiry. I see that and I'm like, oh my gosh. I also love too when people will fill out an inquiry, because sometimes they'll put this and they'll say that they've been following me for a while or that they watch my YouTube, and that always just like really strikes a chord with me, like that in a good way. Like that just really makes me so happy and makes me realize that like this information that I'm putting out is beneficial for you guys. So that makes me really happy too. So next question is how to deal with clients that ghost you who aren't compliant. So when it comes to the ghosting situation, unfortunately, I try not to take it to heart. Sometimes I do at first, and it kind of frustrates me. And then I just have to learn to let it go. I'm like, you know what? It's not worth it. I don't want to fight for somebody who's going to ghost me, right? Like that's not the type of quality client, or that's not the type of, quality I'm looking for in clients, right? If I'm chasing after somebody who's ghosting me, like, what's going to stop them from doing that again in the future, right? So I've kind of just had to learn to like let that go and not take it too personally. Now, when it comes to clients who aren't compliant, typically what I do is I will right off the bat ask a client, hey, how can I help you? Like, do we need to hop on a phone call? Because sometimes it just takes a simple phone call to get them in the right headspace again. Now, of course, there's always going to be people that just as much as you give them as like, you'll give them as many resources as possible, and then they're not compliant. And you have to, as a coach, I've had to realize the client has to want it too. It can't just be one-sided and me wanting it for them. So yeah, it's definitely taken some time to like be okay with those things, but that's my answer to that question. Okay, what are some common questions that clients ask when interviewing a coach? So I would say a lot of times, the phone call, I think for most of the clients that I talk to, is mainly like throughout the phone call, I think that probably what's running through their mind is, like, what do I think of this girl? Like, what's my first impression of her personality? Do I think we're going to be able to get along long term? Do I think this is going to be a good fit personality wise? I think that's really big. And that's not necessarily like a question, that's just a client using their judgment on the phone call, right? But I think other questions that I get clients that ask, they'll ask about like, what's my coaching style? How do check ins work? Maybe a little bit about my background, like my education, how long I've been doing this. But usually with my client consult calls, like they just flow really well. And I love doing them. I love my client consult calls. And I truly believe that in order to have a successful client coaching relationship, that like that consult call is necessary at the beginning of the coaching phase. All right, last couple of questions. So actually, I think this is the last one. This is the last one. So how can a client submit the best check-in ever? And this actually comes from one of my own clients. So shout out to you, Jess, if you're watching. So how can a client submit the best check-in? And I think the best check-in for my clients entails the ones with the most information that I need, right? So for example, I prefer check-ins where there's a little bit more information, and just beyond like, hey, here's my weight, here's what my macros were this week. Like, I love when I actually have clients that take the time to write out, paragraphs, or maybe not paragraphs, but at least like a couple of sentences at least, at the minimum, preferably a paragraph or two, of like just how the week went, how the week went, how they're feeling. I love when clients are really detailed with like their biofeedback. So those are my favorite types of check-ins. My clients know this, but I always tell them like, the more I know, the more I can help you. So, I, at the end of the day, always tell my clients too that like nothing is TMI. Everything they say stays between us. Obviously, they don't need to tell me about like, their personal life drama and whatnot, unless it applies to their compliance to the plan. But, biofeedback is super important. So I really like to gather as much information as possible in check-ins. So that wraps up this Q&A. This was a good one. I really, really enjoyed doing this. I enjoy coaching so much. And like I said, it's not something that I saw myself doing like 5 years ago or whatnot, or, when I was going to school at the beginning, but it is like the best career I never knew I needed, if that makes sense. Like, it truly fulfills me. And just for example, this past week, I woke up every day and I was like, I am so excited and pumped to get after these check-ins and to talk with my clients. So it's really awesome. I appreciate those of you guys who have made it this far in this Q&A. And I also appreciate you guys who ask questions. So stay tuned. I may do a part 2 to this. But if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Share this video if you liked it too. That really does help with the growth of this channel. And I'm really trying to grow this channel and just reach as many people as possible. So thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.